Hi, I'm Robin, and today I'm going to demonstrate the techniques and color mixes used to paint the lovely yellow roses. You'll need to refer to your leaflet to complete the painting. You may wish to practice the techniques and the color mixes on the extra piece of watercolor paper included in your kit. You can also just dive right in and start painting. Then you can use the extra piece of paper to paint another painting to give as a gift. Yellow Roses is a watercolor painting. That means you can easily blend the paint colors together and add depth to your painting by adding more layers of paint to an area. Keep in mind that watercolor paints are reactivated when wet. This means you can mix your colors in the palette, let them dry out, then come back later and use them by just adding water and rubbing gently with a paintbrush. Mixing the colors can be a lot of fun. Remember, every painting will be different and you can adjust the colors to your taste if desired. The first color you'll mix is the reddish yellow for step 3. This color is used to add shading to the rose petals. I can see that the painting uses a lot of this color, so I'll mix a lot. You can see the amount I pulled down of yellow is about equal to the size of my bristles on the size 6 brush. I'll use the same brush to pull down a very small amount of Venetian red. It's always a good idea to add very small amounts of the dark colors to start. I'll mix the colors together and see, I think I've got a little bit too much red in here, but let me try it out and see. I'm going to get some of the excess paint off my brush. My color's way too orangey, so I need to clean my brush and get some of that paint off of there and add some more yellow. So I shouldn't have pulled down quite so much red. I'm going to put it beside my other colors so I can just mix a little bit of that in instead of having to mix all of that to the right color. And then I'll see if this color is better. That looks much better. Now I'm going to pull down some more of this yellow because remember I need to mix quite a bit of this. So I'm going to go ahead and get a nice bunch of this mixed. And if I need to later, I can add a little more yellow to the rest of that excess that was too dark up on the top of my palette. This mix needs to be diluted to achieve a pale, transparent color, so dip a brush in clean water and add it to your palette. And go ahead and mix it in. It's better to err on the side of getting it too diluted and too watery because you can always add additional layers to deepen your color. And that's a very nice light color I can see when I test it on my paper, so I think I'm ready to go. Just keep playing around with it until it's the way you want it, using your extra piece of watercolor paper until you think you have the right level of dilution. Dilute the pure colors used for many steps in this painting by mixing them with water in the same way. You'll use a purplish red mix for the center of the open rose in steps 10 and 11. The swatch in the leaflet is a little too blue. You'll probably want to mix a more reddish color. I can see that the color is more red than blue, so I'll pull a little Venetian red down to my mixing palette and then add a smaller amount of cobalt blue. I'll mix them together and test to see how it looks. I think I need to add just a touch more blue to my mix. Mix it together. Make sure it's all mixed on my brush, and then I'll test it. And I think that looks pretty good. I probably mixed more than I need to just paint that little bit in the center of that flower, but that's okay. I did start with a small amount, and so I did not mix too much paint, and I'll have plenty. I won't run out of paint. This painting uses a couple of different green mixes. I'll demonstrate the mix used to paint the leaves in steps 19 to 21. You'll create a different mix for the buds, stems, and thorns in step 22. I'll make quite a bit of this mix since there are a lot of leaves. Though this is a dark color and will probably use quite a bit of blue, I'll start with a small amount and keep adding until I get the color I want. And it looks like I've got a pretty good color here. Be sure to mix it good so you can get a good idea of what the color is going to look like, and test it on your scrap paper. Now, I'm not demonstrating how to mix each and every color, but I hope that by showing you how I've mixed these, you'll have enough confidence to mix all the colors you need for this painting. Now let's talk about the techniques you'll use. You can use the extra piece of watercolor paper in your kit to practice any step, get the feel of the brush required, or to see how your color will look. It's very helpful to do this, especially when you're first learning to paint and getting comfortable with the brushes and techniques. After a few paintings, you'll find you need to do this less and less. Drawing the paint means using the tip of the bristles to pull the paint along the paper. This is used in step 2 to paint a rose petal. First, I'll wet the petal using my size 6 round brush with clear water. Be sure just to wet the areas that you want to paint at this time. Then I'll drop in diluted lemon yellow paint close to the center of the petal and draw it towards the edge. This will make the color darker toward the center and lighter on the edges. In step 3, we'll drop in paint wet on wet on the part of the petal closest to the center and allow the colors to bleed together. Just lightly tap the tip of the brush to the paper in a short dotting motion. The color will spread into the first color, which is still wet, for a unique blend of new colors. For more control, use only small amounts of paint at a time. Use a cotton swab, rag, or paper towel to dab away any excess paint. You'll paint one petal at a time and allow each to dry before painting the next petal. You can use a hairdryer on a low setting to help speed the drying process. Hold it about 12 inches away from the painting and point straight down to prevent paint from running. You don't want the paint to run like you might see it do a little here. Instead, point straight down and carefully dry it. You'll use a lot of water for this painting. If your painting starts buckling, loosen the tape and gently pull to stretch, and then reapply the tape. And repeat this on all the sides. You can repeat it as often as needed to keep your painting flat. You lift out highlights by pressing a clean damp brush or paper towel into an area of wet paint to absorb some of the paint off the paper. When you remove some paint, that area is lighter, creating highlights. This is done in step 8 of your painting. You can repeat this process until you achieve the desired look. After lifting out the highlight, you'll use the tip of your brush to draw the paint from the edges to form stamens. And my paint has dried a bit, so I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on it to draw out that color for stamens. Steps 10 and 11 guide you through painting the stamens. Roll your brush in the paint to keep a fine point. Draw a fine line around the center using just the tip of your brush, and then draw paint out from the line to form the darker stamens. Add dots to the ends of the stamens by just barely touching the tip of your brush to the paper. You don't have to make sure the dots are at the ends of the stamens, just dot them around and it will look great. Once your stamens are dry, you'll glaze over the center with a mix of cadmium yellow and Venetian red. A glaze is a thin, transparent layer of very diluted color brushed over an area that is already painted. Use a light touch with your brush. Watercolor paints are transparent, so often look less vibrant when dry. If you would like to deepen the color in an area, just paint another layer of the same color in the same way you added the first layer. If the first layer is dried, go over the place where the wet and dry areas meet with a clean, damp brush to prevent hard lines. To avoid overworking your picture, add one layer at a time and allow it to dry before adding another layer. As you paint, think about where the light is coming from. For this painting, it's coming from above, so petals, leaves, and stems that are below another object will be in shadow and should be shaded darker. You can add additional layers of color to darken areas as desired. And again, since the other color has already dried, I'll use a clean, damp brush to soften the edges between the wet paint that I just added and the dry paint that was there before. Thanks for painting with me today. I hope this video helps you enjoy creating your beautiful yellow roses painting. Frame it and display it proudly in your home. See you next time!